And we're live. And
Hello.
this week we have probably the shortest period of time I've known somebody, because I met you for the first time on Friday and I said, "Oh, do you want to be on the show?" And you were like, "Yeah, sure." But you could only do this time. And given that my co-host Christelle is working the next couple of weeks, so can't do the show, I was like, let's talk.
Yes.
So
Hello.
tell me why you made such an amazing impression on me as an SEO expert. And for anybody who doesn't know what SEO is, well, I've actually put search optimization down there so they can read that. But for anybody who doesn't know what SEO is, briefly describe what SEO is.
Yeah, well, I don't know why I made an impression. Probably something clicked.
Yeah.
We were chatting. And yeah, I'm the director of an SEO agency. It's a type of marketing agency that only specializes in optimizing websites.
Yeah.
So work with business owners, usually in professional services or some e-commerce brands. They have a website. They are tired of using it passively as a business card that they show to people. They want to get more out of it. So we work it so that it will become their best sales tool, basically.
Okay. So why does SEO work? And what is the best example that you can give from your own experience of working with people of a company that has used SEO to sort of boost their business, so to speak?
Well, why does it work? Because we all use Google.
Yeah,
Whatever we do, whatever we need to find, it doesn't matter if you're using it as voice search, if you're using it through Alexa or whatever, we search for stuff. And that's now it's been ingrained. We actually think of it from a search perspective. And examples, there are many. I mean, our own website is a case because we actually practice what we preach.
yeah.
So we published some case studies, and one of them has been optimized for keywords such as SEO for doctors, dentists, private practices, and it has been ranking steadily on the top of Google for those kind of keywords for years. And it's kind of an element of pride because when you're ranking for something, it's not just you, it's you against your competitors in your industry. And outranking some other SEO agencies is actually something that is quite an element of pride because they know what to do. And so it's harder. It's like running a race against very advanced, very professional other runners. So it's been driving some regular sorts of leads. That's what it should do. If they find you, you will notice if you're not interested in checking Google Analytics and seeing your
Yeah.
traffic details, you would find it in your inbox if you're not selling products online because you will get a regular steady flow of inquiries, people emailing you, and you should make sure that you ask, where did you find us? And they would say, I found you online, I found you on Google.
Yeah.
And that becomes a conversation opener. It's not a warm lead because to make it be a warm lead, it should be somebody's introduction. So there is already an element of trust that is transferred across. When they find you online, it's a very cold contact. So then it's up to you to nurture it and make sure that they trust you, they understand what type of business you are, how you operate, and so on. Your website should actually do a nice impression. But it's that sort of spark. It can't happen if they don't find you. If you're the best shop in the desert, they would never find you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I was saying in the pre-chat, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I got really into trying to understand SEO, and I think I probably understood it then. But I think the basics are still the same.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say those, like, if somebody was trying to do it themselves? And I am of the suspicion that actually trying to do it yourself now is getting really quite hard. So that's why using an agency makes sense. But what are the basics of SEO and how they've changed over the years?
It has changed quite a lot. I've been doing this for a lot of years. I'm not saying I'm not a kid, but yeah, I started doing this more than 12 years ago. And it has changed. It keeps changing now with AI and the latest announcements, it keeps changing even more dramatically. So, but the basics don't change, which is that Google is made of several factors. One of them,
Yeah.
the constant crawling of the internet and discovering new websites, and every second I don't know how many new websites are launched. So it's getting more and more complicated. So they will eventually, hopefully, discover your website if it's
Yeah.
in SEO, and they need to try and understand what you do. So the very basic is don't play hide and seek. If
Yeah.
you're doing something, don't hide it behind very poetic, fascinating terms. Yes, we need to have a tone of voice that is correct with the positioning of the brand. But the basics of what people search for, you should be aware of what your customer, your ideal customer searches for, and you should make sure that it's in there so that when Google is crawling the website, it can make a possible match between what's on your website, what somebody searches for. Oh, yes, that's a match. I can connect.
Yeah.
They will connect you, but you will be featured high if they think that you're better than your competitors. So that's why it gets complicated, because when I started, there weren't that many websites. It was easy. You could kind of bury things inside and they would find you anyway. Now you need to make it super clear and better, more of a quality result than your competitors. It's a zero-sum game. So if you want to be on the first page, you need to push somebody down. You need to actually be better than they do from a lot of point of view. Technical, so the code needs to be up to scratch, the words, the type of content. Now with the AI, everybody's churning lots of
Mm.
pages, and so there's another level of complication in the mix. But you need to be better than them, be considered by Google able to give even better results to the user, and then you can get a chance.
Okay. So if you had to give me an example of the type of business that really work well with SEO
Yeah.
and a type of business that wouldn't work at all with SEO, what would
Hmm.
be those two? Like if a business was coming to you, what would be the one where you think we can really do this a lot with this, and one where you're like, I'm not sure that will work.
Yeah, it's easy. It's kind of easy to say, because a business that can be in a very high demand, the type of business that can be in a very high demand is something in particular that people like googling more than asking somebody else. These your
Yeah.
money or your life sort of queries, medical, legal, financial, the things that you wouldn't ask a friend for
Yeah.
advice because you feel a little bit conscious, you would Google it. So that's definitely something that thrives on Google. If you're a local business, even better, because if you have, for example, a medical practice, an accountancy practice, or a legal solicitor, lawyer, whatever, and you have a physical location somewhere, you're not trying to outrank everybody else in the world doing the same.
Yeah.
You also are limiting the runners that you're racing against only to your local beats, which usually aren't hundreds and hundreds. So it's easier to be better or the best in a smaller scale. Things that are not yet ready to thrive on Google usually is that sort of category building, as in you have an idea, you want to launch something, it's a startup, it's something that doesn't yet have a position in the market. You've
Yeah.
thought a very sustainable, high-end type of, I don't know, accessory that people, you know that they would need it, but they're not searching for it yet because they don't know how to call it.
Yeah.
That's something that wouldn't yet be ready for thriving on Google. You should first develop a sort of social media presence, brand awareness, and then you will kind of create the category and you will create the interest.
Yeah. It sounds like I've kind of had this conversation with a few people on the show over the years about marketing in general and how it's a lot easier if you've got a product or something that fits what people are searching for or looking for, rather than you might have the best product, but if you don't know, or you can't explain what it does to people, that's a lot worse.
Absolutely, because people need to be able to search for you. And if they don't know what you do, in particular, they don't have a name for what you do, it becomes complicated, because it's difficult even for Google to determine an association between a query, something that somebody searches, and you.
Yeah.
If you can't explain easily what it is, and if it doesn't fall into something that is already searched.
Yeah. Okay. So, it used to be in the old days, like keywords were important. What the keywords you put into your articles was important. Backlinks, so other people pointing to your website. And a lot of people did a lot of terribly spammy stuff in the old days with keywords. So they'd have like an article. And I see it sometimes on YouTube. There was this one guy who did like these terrible superhero thing, and he would just repeat the same phrases over and over and over and over
Yes.
again. What is, including those, but what other things matter now? How relevant are those things now? And like, what other things have been added in? Because I know they've got AI involved now. So what's the AI doing that before it wasn't happening?
Oh, well, yes, there has been a lot of change, and I've seen my little share of horror stories. Even we contributed to that, because when we started, it was so easy to rank a page that you could get away with doing something like, I don't know, cloaking keywords, and it was just what everybody was doing. So I remember white page written in a white font, hotel in Florence, hotel in Florence, hotel in Florence. Yes, done that. I got a t-shirt. But now you mentioned two of the main important factors, because I'm asked to go and explain these kind of things quite often. Despite the accent, people seem to appreciate when I explain. And you can think of it as a triangle, basically: coding, content, links. So content is all of the keywords that you mentioned. And that is one of the things that has changed, if you want a little bit more now, because it's not the word in itself anymore. It used to be the exact match of the keyword had a lot of importance. So again, back at the time, I remember men's watch, men's watches, women's watch, women's watches, and keep on spam and repeat. Now it's definitely not needed anymore. Instead of keywords, in my world, it's more spoken as in entities, semantic entities. So yeah, it's a series, a sort of little cluster of words, and Google, with the new developments, is teaching the machine learning algorithm to associate, to do what basically toddlers start doing, which is a series of words put together means something different than in the word in itself. So the combinations, they determine a pattern of significance. So the machine learning is learning through our interactions, and that's the direction we should be going, to reduce the spamming and to reduce all of the, again, lots of useless content that is just delivered for the sake of trying to move the website forward. That's for the content. Coding has never changed that much. I mean, there are those main things that you should know, and we've always been told page speed is important. They have been saying these things for years, and it hasn't been changed that much. The importance of the basics, the headings, the file size, all of the right settings, those are things that haven't changed much. So it's just making them used throughout the different platforms. Every 5 minutes, a new exotic platform is launched. But in the end, the basics, they're still the same. Backlinks, the ones that you mentioned, they're still important. Because if you try and think how Google operates is basically like when you want to find, say, an accountant, you start asking your friends and then your neighbors and then some colleague. If some names they have been recommended, they start to stick, they are repeated multiple times, you get curious, you may want to have a conversation with this person. Google does the same. Having to choose the very best among so many possible results is challenging. So all things being equal, a website that's equally well optimized in content and the code is flawless, they will start looking at these incoming inbound links as if it's a token of appreciation.
Yeah.
So it's an endorsement, basically. So if you're collecting backlinks, incoming links is like lots of recommendations pointing to somebody. This has been exploited as well, obviously, because there's plenty of people, they email even me. We have an SEO agency and I receive at least one unsolicited email per day of backlink generation company saying, buy my links, buy your will be ranking on the first page tomorrow. Yeah, did you see what I do? So it's a little bit debatable, let's say, because these links are artificially generated. They usually called toxic because Google can notice that they come from websites which don't have a real traffic themselves, don't have real incoming links themselves. They all belong to the same sort of IPs. Very low quality. So you may get actually in trouble after having paid for those type of links. So you may then have to disavow those links after having paid for them. So link building needs to be done very, very carefully. The best type of link building still remains digital PR. So you get a nice endorsement on a real magazine that can generate an incoming link, brand awareness, referral traffic, and possibly some customers as well.
Yeah. So kind of, am I right in thinking, let's say we had one business and their website was slow and terrible, but they had a link from like the Guardian newspaper to their main website. And then we have another website for another business which is fast and but has no backlinks to anybody. Which one of those would win in terms of the rankings, or do you have any data on that kind of what the relative influence of all of these things is?
It depends, because a slow website now is becoming one kind of major sin because page loading, page speed is against user experience. User experience definitely has an importance. So people will not want to spend time on a website that doesn't even load. And we are always in a rush. We only dedicate like 2 microseconds to things. So I wouldn't bet on the slow website, even with one prestigious link. But also because, I mean, if you start getting some prestigious links, you as a business owner should be aware that you have those sort of big faults. So there is definitely something that doesn't match. Usually, we keep on saying it's more a lot of small backlinks, real backlinks, than a couple of super big shiny ones. So quantity over quality over quantity, definitely. But it's a mixture, and it depends on the niche. So if you're trying to outrank somebody in the marketing niche, in the marketing industry, it's definitely more challenging than if you are in a industrial manufacturing industry. So your competitors usually aren't as SEO savvy or marketing savvy. So it's easier to win.
Yeah, it's easier to win within a normal business.
Yeah.
Okay, so trying to think like all the stuff that was like SEO. Is there still there used to be a certain amount of privilege for how long your website has been going? Is that still the case, or
that is still the case? Those are actually data, and there are many pieces of research that you can find online that show that the top ranking websites usually have been existing for an amount of time. And it is a fact that a newly launched website will struggle a little bit at the beginning because there's plenty of reasons. And Google is necessarily skeptical of new sites being launched because every second a lot of new websites are being created, sometimes just for the sake of creating fake network of links and all of that link building. So they're a little bit skeptical. They want to see that a domain actually is reliable, reputable. It's like what we do with a newly launched business. We don't just jump and dump money on them. We want to see them actually operate for a while. So social media signals, this thing actually exists. It's got some traffic, backlinks incoming to the site. So early times for a website are the times in which the business owner, the company, needs to actually do some outreach work and try to get the site under people's eyes, and then you will be found and you will be able to rank, but it's not definitely not an immediate thing.
Okay. So in terms of like content marketing strategy, because there are people I think I've actually had him on this, but I had him on a different show I did years ago. I had a guy who's a content marketing expert, and he was like, answer all the questions that your customers would have. But obviously some smaller businesses, especially like one-man bands, are going to be overwhelmed by like how much content they can create. Is there a penalty if somebody just sets up a really fast, good website with just the same content, and they might add a blog post every 3 months or something, or might add a new case study? Has somebody who is like blogging every week got an advantage on that, or does it depend what they're blogging about? Like, how much does content change make a difference in SEO?
You need to produce content that is useful for the readership, first of all. So if you're producing things that are only thought from your perspective, you might just be wasting your time. So when you're writing about something, sometimes when I'm in person, I do a game of swapping chairs with my the person that I'm speaking with, because try and put yourself in your reader's position. Would you be interested in knowing that you have attended X event, or that these are your COVID procedures of 3 years ago? It's stuff that we don't need it, and we don't want to find it on a website. We want to find something that can help us as the users. So the previous guest that you had and was talking about the questions, the frequently asked questions, that is usually a good place to start if you've got a business, because you have experience, you have been servicing clients for a while, and in the end, the questions that they ask, they tend to recur and be always the same. So do yourself a favor, put the answers on the website. So you won't have to repeat them all the time. If somebody's asking you for the nth time the same thing, you can direct them to the page. You show you're professional, you've got an asset, it's clearly explained, and you can be found by somebody else who's got the same question. It's definitely a hot topic if everybody's asking. That's the type of questions, the type of content that can rank a little bit better. All of those W, what, when, how, why, where, those can have an advantage, and they're usually easier to rank for. There are actually something in the code that you can inject for frequently asked questions and make them found even better. If you don't have time, if your site is completely static, it's difficult for Google to be able to believe that you can provide a better experience, a better quality than your competitor. Because when they're recrawling a website, they will also consider the last update. So again, all things considered, if a website has been updated more recently than yours and it contains the very same things, their website will be considered to be providing a better user experience than yours because it's fresh. It can give a better quality of experience and results. So I would suggest to actually invest some time in doing this. You don't have to overload. You don't have to keep churning content and then forget about it. Just make sure that what you have is evergreen. Don't forget about assets that you have and they're buried there because you publish something every week and you've got something years ago and you don't even know anymore. It might not represent you anymore. If they find you today, it's not up to date anymore. So make sure that whatever you have is relevant, is still updated, but possibly try to keep up and have a conversation. It doesn't have to be too time consuming. It depends on what you can produce. AI can help with this. The way we can actually use technology is not to replace the writers, because all of these writers being sacked because they're being replaced with AI. That's great. We need to start from in the SEO world. There is something which is called EAT, expertise, experience, authority, trustworthiness, and all of these things lie in the individual. The expertise, the experience, the authority, they lie in the person.
Yeah.
So they need to start. It needs to start from you, the service provider, with your experience, to actually jot down something or give a prompt to the AI. The AI can do then the legwork of drafting something, dividing it neatly in a number of paragraphs so that it is the bulk of mess of stuff, because we are always reading from tiny mobile phones on the bus. And if it's a bulk of stuff, I will close the page. It needs so AI can help you structure it in a nice way, but it needs to start from you and it needs to finish with you. Double check then the finish job. But instead of taking 1 hour, it can take like an hour. So you can save a lot of time with all of this work now.
Okay. And the other question that I had forgotten about, and then I remembered another question was, if you've got a brand, you've got a company and brand which does lots of different things, are they better to have separate websites for each of the different things, or one big website? Is there advantages and disadvantages to that, or what would your advice be?
It depends. We always think about a search intent, so the intention behind the search, and there usually is a reason a reason of being. If a company is selling different things, there might be a point in common. So if you're able to actually structure and connect these parts of the website logically together, then you may ensure a sort of seamless navigation and experience. Otherwise, if it's just a random connection, then it be like putting together something that doesn't really match. It depends on the cases, basically.
Yeah, so like my website, for example. Okay, so we've gone through, well, I mean, it's very much the basics because I know it's a huge topic, SEO. How can people find out more about you and your agency? And if they want to get in touch, how can they do that? And yes, tell us about the kind of packages and services you provide to people who are interested in optimizing their website.
Well, LinkedIn is the easiest place to find me. So if you see how it's spelled with the Italian name, that's usually just me with that name. So not easy to confuse me. And if you send me a message on LinkedIn, it's the thing that I check the most after my email. And packages, yes, we do work on a regular monthly basis with clients, because SEO by nature is hard to actually generate something if it's once done and then forgotten. So with our clients, we work on a recurring basis. They're on the website, all the things. So Pink SEO is the company. Again, there are not many others with the same name yet, at least. And you can see we have publish all of the packages on the website, which is a little bit atypical because we wanted people to know where they stand, if it's
Yeah.
possible to actually afford and have a collaboration. We usually work with companies, with employees, because it's an agency and it's very specialized. The team will be, you're never going to be working with a junior. The team is very experienced. All employees are UK based. They have their set of knowledge. So content is very focused on whatever is the niche of the content writers, so medical, legal, SEO strategists, account managers, web team, it's called technical issues. So it's a mixture of synergy of different specializations, and therefore it's an agency model.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on the show today, and hopefully thanks for anybody who was watching or watches the replay, which will be on YouTube on Wednesday. So because I've been trying to be scheduling it regularly even. So, thanks for everybody watching, and thanks Silvia for being on the show.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
This is what God requires.